Hello, it's Jonathan at the piano lesson. Thanks for coming back, and a special hello to my new friend Stefano from Sardinia. Hello, thank you for the lovely letter that you sent me. And we will be in touch at some point soon. I like to think that what I'm doing is benefiting somebody. You might have heard of the expression, less is more. Well, today I'm going to show you why less is more. So we are going to use our tetrachords that we've been learning and do less of them to get more. So here's what I'm talking about. Here is an example of a tetrachord, two tetrachords, okay? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And we'll just write that in. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And for the Italian audience, La, Ti, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La. See, I can speak Italian. I wish. I wish. Although one of my wonderful voice teachers was Italian, and her daughter, who was a great singer, speaks Italian. So I did spend some time there, and it's a beautiful place. Okay, let's get back to work. So the lower tetrachord and the upper tetrachord have something in common. This is the perfect fourth, and they are set next to one another, and that's referred to as a disjunct, D-I-S-J-U-N-C-T, disjunct relationship. So dis meaning not, dis means not. There are tetrachords with that share notes, and those are called conjunct, but we're not doing those now. And the lower one's a minor, and the upper one is a phrygian. Why? Well, the lower one, the half step is between the third and fourth note, third and fourth degree, and the upper one, the half step is between the first and second tetrachord, okay? That all together we would call what? That would be a natural minor. It's a natural minor scale. The word natural, what does that mean? It just means that the key signature, okay, is precisely the same as its relative major. So what is the relative major of A minor? Well, C major. C major and A natural minor. The word natural again meaning having the precise same key signature. A natural minor scale can have sharps or flats in it, but they are not accidentals, okay? The word accidental means a sharp, a flat, or a natural that is not in the key signature. So natural meaning all in the key signature. That scale is also called what? Aeolian, right? Now, what are we going to do with that scale now that we know it? And how did we come to know it? Well, hopefully you've learned your majors. That's the difference. That's the major. C sharp would be major. And this is major. That's F sharp and G sharp, right? The outer notes, the tetrachord, the word is bound, B-O-U-N-D, B-O-U-N-D, bound like tied up by that perfect fourth. But I'll write the word perfect, P-E-R-F-E-C-T. That's the perfect fourth. Those are the major. This is the natural minor. Now let's take out some of those notes. Let's take out the second one, boom, and let's in there. Now we're left with three notes. Well, that's kind of an interesting little scale. What the heck is that? That scale, these three keys and these two keys, is precisely the same actually as this. And then what would be lower than that? All right, that is a pentatonic, P-E-N-T-A, pentatonic, T-O-N-I-C. So penta meaning I'm going to write that clearer, sorry guys. P-E-N-T-A, pentatonic. Penta is 5. Tonic just means key, right? But it's 5, that's the 5-note scale. That's this scale. How many pentatonic scales are there? Well, there's 5 actually. If you create an inversion, this is a minor, and this is a major. Those are the 2 most common, all right? So what we've done here is, in a sense, we've created a minor pentatonic, right? Just by a minor pentatonic scale, just out of getting rid of those 2 notes. See? So now you know, if you know your minor tetrachord or your Phrygian tetrachord, and you put them together, and you get your natural minor scale. If you get rid of a note on each one, well, you've created your pentatonic scale. Now, here's a very interesting point. If I add one more note, and we could call it either D sharp. I'm going to move this over a little bit, give us some room here. All right. Or E flat. Let's just say call it E flat, or let's call it D sharp. You know why? Because then I don't have to write a natural sign. Let's call it D sharp. Okay. D sharp. If I add that, well, now that note there, right dead center in the middle, that is a blues scale, the blues scale. And I don't know, I mean, do blues musicians know what a blues scale is? Well, I suppose. I mean, this is something we could have invented. You know, there's probably many different kinds of blues scales, but the most typical one is this. And I want you to notice that the distance from right smack dab in the middle, that distance there, that distance, that is our infamous tritone, T-R-I-T-O-N-E. That is a tritone, and this is a tritone. 3 whole steps. There's 3 whole. There's a whole step, and there's a whole step, and there's a whole step. And likewise, there's a whole step, and there's a whole step, and there's a whole step. And both of those tetrachords, those are tetrachords because they have 4 notes, right? They share this note, and that's if they both share that note. So that's one instance. Now we have a conjunct, C-O-N-J-U-N-C-T, a conjunct relationship, right? But the scale is, so there's this and this. Here you have the half step in the end. Here you have the half step at the beginning, right? But those 2 groups of notes are really precisely the same. You have your perfect fourth, and you have your extra note. This is a minor third. So if you want to make a blues scale, that's how you do it. So let's do another one. All right, we'll do a few of these so you can kind of catch on. Okay, let's catch on here. Let's do one in C. We'll do a C. So C, E flat, F, F sharp, G, A, and did I write that? Sorry, not A. B flat. Pardon me. B flat, and then C. There's the tritone, right smack dab in the middle. That's our tritone right in there. But the perfect fourth is there, and the other perfect fourth is there. Right? Those are the perfect fourths. Right? But each of those is the the tritone. What's another name for a tritone? Well, potentially how it's spelled. If I go from C up to F sharp, that might be an augmented fourth, right? And F sharp up to C, that might be a diminished fifth, depending on your perspective. Why would I name them two ways? Well, I name them two ways because if you just simply recite the alphabet, okay, C, D, E, flat, F, sharp, doesn't matter, C, D, E, F, that's a fourth, right? Here, if you recite the alphabet, doesn't matter, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, F, G, A, B, C, that's five. F, G, A, B, C, that's a fifth, okay? Space, line, space, line, space, that's a fifth, as opposed to line, space, that's a fourth. And that's why they would get the different names. This is a C, this is an F. This is an F, this is a C, all right? If you take a fourth and you invert it, you get a fifth. Now, it doesn't really matter if it's F or F sharp or whatever. It's basically a fourth, okay? But that's why we're doing it. So here's your blues scale. And without that middle note, radically different, isn't it? It sounds very Asian, but this group of notes is just like this group of notes. And you're adding in the extra note. Let's do another one, okay? Let's do F, all right? Let's do F, all right? So F, and let's do F. Let's do the takeaway, okay? If you learned your tetrachord, here's F major, F, G, A, B flat, F, G, A, B flat, right? That's the major. If you make it into minor, well, you lower that middle note. That would be A flat, all right? That's now minor. And likewise, if you go above it over here, here's your major. C, D, E, F, that's major. Minor would be, that's your minor, okay? Right? And we're going to get rid of the second note in the sequence. Right? There's that's our minor pentatonic. Sounds very Asian. We got rid of those notes. And then we're going to add one more note in between. We're going to call it B natural, okay? B natural. So we'll just write out these notes: F, A flat, B natural, C, E flat, and F. So, and there's your F blues scale. Hooray! You know, you got to know that you got to have that sound in order to play jazz. And unlike other scales or chords, you know, we have clusters of notes. So the word cluster, C-L-U-S-T-E-R, cluster is just a group of notes that are kind of close together. You're playing in between the cracks, okay? The cracks, that's where you play, that's where jazz is played, in the cracks. And sometimes you see me holding all the notes down. Sometimes you see me holding some down and lifting one up. And it gives the impression, it gives the illusion that you're bending a string, like say on a guitar or bending a note on a saxophone. Now notice I played an A natural there instead of an A flat. This idea in jazz that jazz, the tonality is not distinctly major or minor. It's somewhere in between. It's there. It's very ambiguous. Ambiguous meaning it's not definitive, it's not definite, it's something kind of questionable. Is it happy, sad, is it major or minor? Let's do another one. Let's do G, okay? Let's do G. Why am I doing that? Well, because I have a sneaky plan. I'm going to do a blues, all right? All the best jazz musicians that I know, they're especially, for instance, Harold Mayburn, who's not with us any longer, who was my teacher for a while. He said he's a blues piano player, really. They think of themselves as blues piano players. So, major, G, A, B, C, G, A, B, C, D, F, E, F sharp, G, D, E, F sharp, G. I didn't write the sharp up there. But, you know, if it was major, that's what it would be, okay? Then, minor, we lower the third half step, and up here, the F sharp comes down to F natural. That's why I didn't write the sharp, right? And then we get rid of our second note, okay? So, isn't that easier just to learn 3 notes? All you have to know is 3 notes. Notice I'm repeating a note when I do that. G, G. Right? That's this sound again, right? And then we're going to add one other note into that. The glue in between, the little note in between the C sharp, the magical C sharp in there. So we have G, B flat, C, C sharp, D, F, and G. Okay, and again, that's our perfect fourth. That's our perfect fourth. That's the conjunct note. There are, typically when we talk about tetrachords, right, we talk about perfect fourths, but there are tetrachords that are bound by these augmented fourths, or you can consider them the diminished fifth. And this is an instance where it's very useful to kind of know those shapes in your hand, to have those shapes in your hand. If you have this whole tone scale and you take your second finger and lower it a half step, right? Or likewise, if you have this whole tone scale and you take your, you get these 2 notes up here, that's a little bit different than the one we just had here. Here I only have to move 1 note. That's whole tone. Here I have to move actually, if this is a whole tone scale, I actually have to move more than 1 note. I have to move 2. Now, we got this. So that's a G blues scale, right? And it's pretty hard to play music and to play jazz if you don't know blues scales. It's just kind of hard, you know. But now, there's 2 kinds of blues. But blues, for those of you who might not know, the word blues to a musician means something specific. It doesn't have to be this, but usually means this. It usually means that you have 12 bars or measures. I remember a friend of mine, an African musician, really good musician, he says, we don't have measures. Well, they have highly structured music in Africa, but they just don't like really think about measures in the same way that we do. And I mention that because the blues really has its origins, many say, from West Africa. And what's Mali? Yes, in Mali, the country of Mali. But the tunings, the tonality that they have is very different. But so a blues in C, we'd have 12 bars, C, F, C, and that would be repeated. That's a repeat sign. F, repeat again. These are bar lines. C, repeat. G, F, C, and then this is again, you could, depending, you might have a G as a turnaround. Turnaround meaning that it's a chord that gets you back to the beginning, or you could have C again. These are just options. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so there's your 12 bar blues, All right. Now, usually they're not, if you see capital C, right, that's a triad. The unusual thing about jazz or blues is that all of the chords are dominant chords. They're all dominant 7 chords. That's the complete opposite of what you'd ordinarily expect. You'd ordinarily expect a dominant chord at the end of the song, not at the beginning. 1, 4, 1, 5, G7, 1. In this case, they're all dominant. 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. And that's a really unusual concept. So now you can have a blues in a major key. These are kind of semantics, because if you have a blues in a major key, it's going to sound minor no matter what in some ways. And if you have a blues in a minor key, it's going to sound major, because we're always kind of flipping back and forth around that minor third there. So I just taught you a blues scale, and it excluded the major third. Could you put it back in? Darn right you could. But pretty typical little blues riff. There's a left-hand pattern, just beating fifths and sixths in the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3. So let's start from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. What am I playing here? I'm playing eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 4 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, go to the dominant, 10, 11, 12, and you're back to the top. Now another little bass pattern that's fun to play is I skipped the F there. If you noticed, I just kept on C. I stayed on C. That's a variation of the same thing. And if you notice, I'm going to use the same scale overall, all the chords. can use the same C blues scale over all those chords. That's really pretty interesting. Now I could change the scale. I could play 1, F, O, F. But for some reason, it loses, it sounds wrong. and it kind of loses some of its tension. You have to incorporate it a little bit better with harmony. That's a pretty common pattern you hear a lot. C, F, which is really the C7 chord. You're just staying on C. You hear the difference? Kansas City. I'm going to Kansas City, here I come. I'm gonna Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. They got some crazy way of living and I'm gonna get me some. What the words are, they've got some crazy women and I'm gonna get me some. I think that's it. That's like such a classic blues. I'm gonna Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. Ooh, I'm gonna Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. See, it's a C chord, but it uses the E flat. They got some crazy women, and I'm gonna get me some. Well, I might take the train, well, I might take the plane. Kind of tremolo. And going back and forth between 1, 4, 1. F, B if I could do the dominant 7 or just plain old F. Sometimes just a plain chord is better, especially if you're doing rock and roll. But you see that there's those blues scales, octaves. There's your pentatonic. That's a major pentatonic. I'm kind of mixing it in. Ending. So I hope you guys had some fun today with that. You know, always like breaking out the blues in the summer, and try to do some, you know, some other blues scales. How many are there? Well, there's 12. Why are there 12? Well, because there's 12 notes in a chromatic scale, right? You have 7 white keys, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you have 5 black keys, a group of 3 and a group of 2. So 7 and 3 is 10, 2 is 12. That's your chromatic scale. But when you're learning the blues scales, it's good to learn them in some kind of a musical order. And that's it. I gotta go. Good to see you. Bye-bye.